The United States government knew. The South Korean government built it. And for decades, both of them stayed silent. This is not a story about war. This is a story about what governments do to their own people when no one is watching. And when someone finally looked, the documents were already buried. South Korea, 1950. The peninsula is on fire. Chinese forces pushing south. American boots on the ground. A war that the world called a police action, as if the word war was too honest for what was happening. But inside the chaos, inside the military zones, another system was being built. Quietly, officially, with government stamps and numbered doors and inspection schedules. The South Korean government called them special comfort stations. They were brothels, state-run, military-sanctioned, and supplied with Korean women, some recruited through deception, some through economic desperation, some through outright coercion. The women were told they were going to work, cooking, cleaning, support roles near the base. They were not told what the work actually was. By the time they understood, the door was already behind them. These stations were not hidden in back alleys. They were registered. They were inspected by military medical officers. American and South Korean soldiers were issued access. The women were examined for sexually transmitted disease on a schedule, not for their protection, but to keep the men healthy enough to fight. That is the sentence you need to sit with. The women's health was managed as a military resource, not as human beings. As a resource, South Korean government documents, declassified decades later, confirmed the Ministry of Defense was directly involved in establishing and operating these stations. American military records show U.S. commanders were aware these facilities existed near their bases. Aware, and said nothing, did nothing, signed nothing that stopped it. Some historians estimate tens of thousands of Korean women passed through these stations during and after the war. Most of them never spoke publicly. Not because they had nothing to say, because in Korean society, the stigma that followed them was so total, so suffocating, that silence was the only way to survive it. They were not victims in the eyes of their communities. They were shameful, women to be avoided, daughters that families quietly erased. When the war ended in 1953, the Americans packed their bags and left. The South Korean government quietly shut the paperwork. And the women, the ones who survived, were left with nothing. No compensation, no acknowledgement, no apology, just silence. For 40 years, that silence held. Then in the 1990s, Korean researchers started pulling at threads. Documents surfaced. Testimonies emerged. Elderly women, some in their 70s and 80s, finally spoke. Not because they wanted to relive it, but because they were tired of being erased. In 2014, a South Korean court ruled that the government had violated the constitutional rights of these women. The South Korean government appealed. Let that land. The government that built the system appealed the ruling that said what they did was wrong. As of today, not one official has been prosecuted. Not one government has issued a formal apology to these specific women. The stations are gone. The documents are sealed. And most of the women who survived are now dead. They died waiting. Now here is what they do not teach you in any classroom. This was not unique to Korea. This was a pattern, a global pattern. Governments across history have used women's bodies as military infrastructure and called it something else. Japan did it to Korean, Chinese, Filipino, and Dutch women during World War II. They called them comfort women. 200,000 estimated victims. For decades, Japan denied it happened at all. It took survivor testimony, international pressure, and 60 years before any partial acknowledgement came. And even that acknowledgement was contested, retracted, and argued over like a trade negotiation. The women were not at the table. They were never at the table. France did it in Indochina and Algeria. Military brothels called bordels militaires de campagne, operating under French army command through 2 world wars and colonial conflicts. The women in those systems were colonial subjects. Vietnamese, Algerian, Moroccan. Women from the nations France was occupying, forced into servicing the armies of the nation occupying them. The colonial logic was explicit. These women were resources of the territory. Italy did it in Libya and Ethiopia during Mussolini's colonial campaigns. The British military had documented systems in India, Egypt, and across their colonial territories. And in every single case, the pattern is identical. State involvement, official documentation, medical inspection to protect soldiers, not women. Decades of denial, survivors stigmatized into silence. And when the truth finally surfaces, bureaucratic language, sealed archives, and the slow death of accountability. Here is what makes the Korean case different. Here is the part that should make you unable to stay quiet. The South Korean comfort station system did not end in 1953. A version of it continued into the 1960s, into the 1970s, into the 1980s, now targeting a specific demographic: women near U.S. military bases. The South Korean government, in declassified documents, explicitly referred to these women as a tool of diplomacy. Their words, not a metaphor, not an interpretation, a tool of diplomacy, meaning keeping American soldiers satisfied near their bases was considered a national security strategy, and the women providing that satisfaction were considered instruments of that strategy. South Korean government documents show officials running what they called education programs for these women, teaching them how to maximize the dollars American soldiers spent, because the foreign currency coming through these zones was economically significant. The government was not protecting these women. It was managing them, for profit, for alliance maintenance, for geopolitical positioning. And Washington, across multiple administrations, looked at the base towns, looked at what was happening, and maintained a policy of deliberate ignorance. Because the bases needed to stay, and the alliance needed to hold. And the women, they were not part of the calculation. They were never part of the calculation. Now we are going to cover the stories they never taught you. The ones sealed in archives. The ones where the survivors are still waiting. The French colonial brothel system, we are covering it. The Italian military comfort system in East Africa, we are covering it. The British military's documented use of women across their colonial territories, we are covering it. And the one story that will stop you mid-scroll when we release it, the one involving a Western democracy, a post-war occupation, and a comfort station system that ran for nearly a decade after the war officially ended, that one is coming. And when it drops, you will understand why it is still classified in parts. If this story made you feel something, that is because it should. Share this video, not for the algorithm, for the women who never got a courtroom, for the survivors who died waiting for one word, sorry. Comment the word hidden below, because that is exactly what they did to this story. They hid it. And the only thing that breaks 40 years of institutional silence is enough people refusing to look away. Type hidden. Share this before they bury it again.